trans. When boiling point strikes, they can be given the order.
They have automatic weapons, Igor.
Unacceptable. Completely fucking retarded.
I don't understand. How?
Protests are completely retarded.
Well, what the fuck?
The two things that can get you what you want, khakis and white polo shirts, deal with the fucking problems that we have once and for all.
We have good American commies who just burn down our towns.
The greatest acts of violence the world has ever seen.
And this is illegal here.
Voting and Jews.
What's next? Добрый вечер, господа. И сегодня у нас интервью с первым транснегром и борцом за права меньшинств, известным австралийским афроамериканцем CatboyKami. Здравствуйте, господин CatboyKami. И первый вопрос, который я хотел бы вам задать, это я слышал, что вы не так давно вступили в ополчение Донбасса и уже провели первую операцию по ликвидации известного украинского полевого командира Евгения Вольнова. Расскажите, пожалуйста, что вас подвигло встать на путь борьбы с Украиной?
I've never even been to Eastern Europe. I don't know how I managed to do that.
It's kind of trolling.
Yeah, I realize.
Само собой, господин CatboyKami, что никто, естественно, из действующих сотрудников спецназа ДНР не будет, соответственно, признаваться в участии в спецоперациях, но, тем не менее, может быть, вы могли бы рассказать все-таки о каком-нибудь другом CatboyKami, вашем однофамильце, который вот развернул кампанию ужаса и террора против украинских националистов, и самого главного из них, Евгения Вольнова. К нам только что пришли фотографии с его похорон в Киеве. Было очень большое, значит, собрание. У него как бы очень безутешная семья после проведенной вами спецоперации.
Pretty easily, even though he caught me by surprise. He wasn't very smart, probably because he's a half sand nigger, so it's pretty easy.
Как вы считаете вообще, являются ли русские, как вот заявлял Вольнов, белыми, или, может быть, мы действительно потомки монголо-татар, и господин Вольнов прав, и вы должны, конечно же, обрушить свой российский гнев на вот, значит, наше загадочное русское мясо?
So the question always comes up, what is white? Who are white people? And it's pretty simple. If your ancestors evolved in Europe, you're white. And in English, Russia, Ukraine, all of those sorts of countries are known as Eastern Europe. So by definition, it's part of Europe. And we can also understand on another level of analysis that they're European, Russians that is, because of how genetically similar they are to other groups of people in Europe. Now, as for Russians being part Mongolian, I'm sure you can find some Russians that are half anything or part anything. But as far as I'm aware, not all Russians have Mongolian admixture, so it's disingenuous to say that Russians in general are part Mongolian.
Есть ли у вас какое-то мнение по конфликту на Украине, чей Крым, чей Донбасс и все такое прочее?
I find it incredibly sad in any situation where white people are killing each other. So that's the most important takeaway from the conflict, I'd say. We are, as whites, more similar than we are different. And Eastern Europeans, well, they're even more similar to each other, you know? So to be killing each other is quite a tragedy. And I think that's the main takeaway from it. Like, genetically, you guys are like practically the same, right? So no brother wars is the is the only thing people need to know about that.
Ну, касательно того, что мы генетически одинаковые, вот вы только что обзывали господина Вольнова Сент half Сент, то есть получается, что мы, соответственно, тоже half Сент.
No, that's just him specifically. I happen to know his heritage.
С чем вы связываете огромную вашу популярность в России? С одной стороны, вы, конечно, пионеры в защите прав транс. А с другой стороны, у нас в России не так, чтобы есть большая проблема с ***ми. То есть почему вот, по-вашему, ваши пародии обрели такую популярность, хотя они касаются не особо актуального для России расового вопроса?
I still haven't figured it out, really. I guess you don't have to live with to know a little bit about them. And as long as you know a thing or two about you would be able to understand the humor behind the trans skits and all of that. So that's probably why. And then given that Russia has less censorship around stuff like that, it's probably a lot easier to spread. And I'd say that's likely the reason.
Как вы думаете, чего вообще докатится движение БЛМ и все, что с ним связано в Америке, когда, наконец, пойдет обратка от великой арийской расы? Потому что пока мы видим, как белые в публичном пространстве на Западе сдают свои позиции раз за разом, и то, что вчера еще было немыслимо, сегодня становится нормой. Когда это остановится и чем это закончится?
It's sad to say, but white people are willing to put up with a lot. White people are different from other races because we only act when it's absolutely necessary and when there's no further options. We act in last resort, and when we act, it is the greatest acts of violence the world has ever seen. And to elaborate on this further and to explain why whites are like this, it's because it's part of it just goes hand in hand with being a high trust society. It's part of that. So if you are willing to tolerate a lot, so if someone annoys you or someone does something that you don't like, you don't really say or do anything about it, and you continue to cooperate with them until absolute breaking point, and then you just kill them. That leaves the most space for cooperation. Whereas the way other races work, like say for example, because they would be the opposite of this, act with violence the moment anyone does anything that they don't like. But the violence is much less. Whereas, so to put it simply, if say you say something a doesn't like, and might try to punch you. Whereas if you say something a white guy doesn't like, he'll probably not even say anything. However, if you do something that whites see as unacceptable, and whites see that there is no further solutions available, whites will just kill everyone that's slighting them. Whereas don't really, they have greater violence to start with, but they're not capable of the absolute violence that whites have been known for throughout our history.
Да, но ведь проблема не только в играх. Насколько я знаю, вы большой друг с господином Фуэнтесом, который лидер движения гройперов, и который сконцентрирован на, собственно, критике мейнстримных консерваторов в США, в первую очередь, республиканской партии. То есть, ну, сводить все к потому что ведь никто не капитулирует перед капитулирует, в первую очередь, политический мейнстрим сам перед собой. Ведь проблема же не в каких-то чуваках из гетто.
I'd say it's not just the conservative side of the US government, it's the US government in general. So basically, since its inception, Americans have lost rights gradually every single year, regardless of if the Conservative Party is in charge or the Democratic Party or anyone. So fundamentally, it's not an issue with the structure of the party, it's an issue with the structure of the government. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The US government has a far greater hand in the suffering of the American people than a movement like Black Lives Matter does. And I believe that whites are smart enough to realize this, and when the time of absolute breaking point comes, whites will, in part thanks to people like me, know exactly who is responsible. Now, to go even further into who's responsible, it is people who don't represent whites. Jews, for example. Jews have the interests of Jews at heart. Any biological organism, unless it is very heavily mutated, but that's another subject, and Jews are not, any biological organism has the interest of its own survival, its own reproduction, and the reproduction of and survival of its group at large. Because even if you don't reproduce personally, if someone genetically similar to you reproduces and is successful, then your genes are passed on vicariously because you're genetically similar. And so you can see the conflict of interest here, right? If you give people or fucking parasites power instead of giving members of your own power, then the parasites and the rats and the cockroaches are going to seek to benefit the lives of other cockroaches at the expense of the people who rightfully have the country as a birthright, which would be white Americans. So, yeah, that is one of the main fundamental problems with the US government. It is not ethnocentric in nature, and therefore it can be infiltrated by people who share no birthright to the United States. And this same issue applies to other countries as well. But the United States tends to be what I speak about the most because at the moment it's the global superpower, so it's the most relevant country to talk about for a lot of things.
Да, но ведь представлять все это как белые против негров или там, значит, правительство против белых, это же очень сильное упрощение. Потому что, ну вот, в том же недавнем инциденте в Киноше со стрельбой, там, собственно, все трое напавших на Кайлу, они были белыми, причем они не были евреями. То есть проблема-то в том, что все это становится уже частью культуры, и среди белых большая часть на БЛМ-демонстрациях это абсолютно белые люди, то есть это уже вышло за пределы, скажем так, расового противостояния, и мне кажется, что говорить о том, что вот там белые поднимутся, и там, значит, в какой-то момент, когда как бы будет критическая точка, восстанут, так, ну они уже поднялись, сказали, давайте права, то есть уже даже не права, я не знаю, как это назвать.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I touched on earlier with genetic mutation. So this is sort of a big subject. As I said, a biological organism naturally seeks to pursue whatever most benefits its own kind. And the reason for that is because any organism that did not do that in the past would have died out. It would have not evolved, right? Because obviously, if you don't support members of your own gene pool, then that gene pool is going to die versus any other gene pool that does seek to continue to exist. However, since the Industrial Revolution, we haven't had the evolutionary pressures that we have had for billions of years. And because of that, there are genetically mutated individuals that have been able to explode in population size. So if you are genetically mutated, you can have all kinds of problems with yourself that are completely unsustainable. And one of them, for example, would be mental illnesses, right? Around 88% of your genetics actually codes for your brain. So obviously, if you are genetically mutated, the first thing to likely be affected is actually your mind. And we can observe that with the rise in mental illness today. And like I say, the reason for this is because these people used to just die out in childbirth. So if you have a mental illness, you are far more likely to have, for example, a weaker immune system. So if you're born pre-industrial revolution and you have a weak immune system, you'll probably die within the first few years of life, and then your mental illness is not really going to pass on. Whereas nowadays, infant mortality is practically zero. So anyone, no matter how mutated, is able to survive and even potentially reproduce. However, what is interesting is that because these people are so dysgenic and go so far against their own survival, it's observed that they typically don't reproduce. And hell, they even advocate for others to not reproduce. They're very against their own genes being passed on and propagating, which is interesting. So we're starting to observe a trend where these people are actually going down in numbers. However, this is going to be a very slow process and take generations upon generations, but we're starting to notice the trend. And the people that are reproducing in large numbers are the people that are less genetically mutated, who are they tend to be higher in religiosity, they tend to be more conservative, and all of that makes sense because those things are all strategies that would promote the survival of your own kind, right? So it's those people that will continue to exist.
Let me interrupt. Maybe it's also because the majority of people don't think by themselves, and maybe it's because of some media tells them what to do, like go to protest against vice, if they're white, to go support BLM if they're white, and so on. They're just puppets of mass media. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are people, I'd say a lot of people don't agree with a lot of the stuff going on, but they still publicly support it because they're in fear of losing their jobs or potentially even worse. And yeah, the Jewish news media does, and I'm not sure how familiar your audience is, but if you look at the top 6 media conglomerates that control, it's like over 95% of all media in the US. 5 of them are owned by Jews, and which is crazy given that Jews are less than 2% of the population. And the other one that's not owned by Jews still has, in most of its major companies that the conglomerate owns, most of those major companies are run by Jews. So that's quite remarkable. And so any harmful things going on in the media can absolutely be attributed to Jews. Some people like to say, going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I'll make it brief. Some people like to say that it's because Jews have a higher average IQ. So Ashkenazi Jews sit at 115, whereas whites sit at around 100. However, it doesn't take into account the massive population difference between whites and Jews. So sure, a white bell curve might be like this and a Jewish bell curve might be a little bit further ahead, but there's so many more whites that even on the far ends of the bell curve, whites beat out Jews almost 10 to 1. There's, like, for example, at 145 IQ, which is absolute fucking genius level, you would have, I think it's about 1 million whites in the US sit at that, whereas, or actually it might have been 800,000, versus for Jews, it's about 200,000. So the numbers don't add up for why there is such a vast amount of Jewish power in the US. And it just goes to show how much of a benefit very high in-group preferences supporting your own race. And it can even beat out something such as being vastly outnumbered by people smarter than you. Now, the original question was about the media affecting the US population. And yeah, absolutely. People are being indoctrinated, not only in the media, but in schools. And not only the US population, right?
Let
Yeah,
me
it's all
interrupt,
over, it's
please.
all over the world.
You see, you have a problem here. Ладно, я продолжу по-русски, потому что у нас все-таки был. Проблема в чем? В том, что, собственно, предлагают радикально левое движение неомарксисты. Они рассматривают все отношения как отношения власти, power relations. Они анализируют общество с позиции, какой группе принадлежит власть, и всячески занимаются проактивными действиями, чтобы перетянуть эту власть на себя. У тебя же пассивная позиция. Ты предлагаешь сидеть и ждать поколения, там, значит, столетия, пока генетика не возьмет свое. То есть и все эти там, поколения, десятилетия, столетия медленно, собственно, сдавать куски власти, куски силы, да, вот этому вот, значит, активной, культурной, общественным, там, финансовым и всем прочим организациям, которые... То есть это же прямой путь к поражению, потому что невозможно выиграть войну, сидя в обороне, даже самый гениальный. You can't win a war when you are on the defense. Leftists, Marxists, neo-Marxists, they see everything in the world through power relations. They analyze society to understand where resides power, and then they grab this power. They grab more and more power every day, and you surrender them this power, waiting for the decades, for the hundreds of years before biology, before genetic will say it word. So you are losing. You are losing, and you are hoping for some kind of biological wonder in the space of few hundreds years from now, and so on. You can't win a war when you are on defense, when you are passive. They are active. They are proactive. You are just. You're just saying, just sit and wait, then some genetic miracle will happen.
I'm pretty sure previously when I mentioned the gradual generational changes in population, I said that this would take hundreds of years, and I think I specified that wouldn't be enough. But if I didn't, I apologize. So, yeah, obviously something needs to be done, because if the parasites and cockroaches take enough power, then they'll kill us all before any change in population is able to take place, and they're probably aware of that. And also, they don't really need to reproduce because they're pulling in large foreign populations, like niggers, for example, to population replace whites for them. And so, yeah, obviously, something needs to be done, and relatively soon. And
What's need to be done?
I don't think I've ever said anything other than that. But anyways, so the issue is, like I say, like I said before, that whites don't act unless they see no other option. So here's what needs to be done. Whites need to organize and be ready so they are in the best possible position to where when boiling point strikes, they can be given the order and deal with the fucking problems that we have once and for all. And I can't say much, but I do have a multi-year plan for that sort of thing. I've been studying revolutions of last century recently, and the patterns with all of them are pretty clear. So I understand what needs to be set up so people are ready.
But how you will organize if you will be doxxed for any right-wing activity in the US, then you will lose your job, then some thugs will come to your house and try to harass you. Even you don't do anything dangerous, you just joke, you joke rudely, but that's totally fine. But when I watched your interviews getting ready for this talk, I've noticed that you multiple times said that you are ready for the attacks, you are ready that someone will try to kill you for what? For just fucking blackface. And don't you think that this is a breaking point? If you can't even make a blackface and a couple of racist jokes, and then you see house and house talking about how are you ready that you will be attacked, that they will try to kill you, and we both know that this is not a joke, that there are multiple attacks on right-wing activists in USA for even less than this. Don't you think that if you can't even fucking joke on the internet without fearing for your own safety, that this is a breaking point, that what's next?
Just observing history, because all of this stuff has happened before. Whites put up with a hell of a lot more than what we're dealing with right now before breaking point struck. It sucks because we absolutely are under attack, you're right, but just from my own observation and my observation of historical precedent, right now, the majority of people, and you don't even need a majority, but you need enough of a minority to hit critical mass for action. And people are just too comfortable right now. So grow forces and then wait until a point where you can give an order
too
for great action.
Too comfortable with riots, too comfortable with burning cities, too comfortable with all these thugs who just kick and beat up people on the street randomly just for the hell of it, too comfortable with the very fact that some schmuck can come and burn down your family-owned business. What's next? You know, there were long time ago Russian White Guards officers who didn't want to evacuate from Crimea when Reds were invading, because they said, well, that's just let's wait it out. These guys, Reds, they're terrible, okay, but it's not the end of the world. And they sit down and they waited and they hope for something, and then Reds came and just shot them all up, and that's all, end of the story. And then we lost our country. And I see totally same dynamics here. Even Black Lives Matter founders, they are openly Marxist. They are literally commie shit. And you say, oh, this commie, they did genocide in Russia. They killed millions of Russians just for the hell of it. But no, those commies were bad. We have good American commies who just burn down our towns, who just harass us, who just attack us, who will take our money, will take our right to say everything you want, already taken. But then some miracle will happen and we will organize. No, you won't. Then you will go to Gulag in Alaska. You know, if I were a white American right now, I would start to lobby to return Alaska to Russia, because you know it's much more comfortable to sit in California Gulag than in Alaskan Gulag. So it's kind of trolling, but really. And
I didn't say do nothing. If you heard me before, I said things are clearly going to get worse, and so we need to start organizing. But I believe right now, even if we had already organized, and the fact is there's no major organization in the US at the moment to deal with this sort of thing. But even if there was, I believe if the order was given for great action, it would not be accepted by the majority of the members of the organization. However, at the very least, maybe I'm wrong, but we wouldn't even know because we currently don't have a major organization to deal with this sort of thing. So the first step is absolutely to start organizing. And your response to that was, well, people might get doxxed or lose their jobs. And I see absolutely no reason why you would need a member list. I think that's one of the main issues with any small attempts to organize thus far. People are required to give out their fucking names and addresses and shit, which makes absolutely no sense. You could just be assigned a number, right? Member number 1562 or something. And that's the only means of identifying you that the organization has. A member list can always be leaked. So don't have one in the first place. And I think that would hugely help with one of the major barriers to entry we have when it comes to whites organizing in the first place. But see, people haven't been discussing this sort of stuff. This is all very new.
You know, the only attempt in recent years to organize amongst right Americans was Unite the Right rally that ended in nothing. That ended in a new wave of left-wing terror.
The Unite the Right rally was completely fucking retarded. I mean, like I say, for one, they didn't concern themselves with keeping a secret their members' identity. I know it sounds silly, but it's really not. Their fashion sense was absolutely appalling, and that's very important because it is not what someone says, it is who is saying it, how it is being presented. Oftentimes people have the right idea, but the wrong presentation. So a group that not only does not seek to make themselves as attractive as possible, but actually makes themselves look worse with khakis and white polo shirts, they're not serious people. They're not aware of they're not aware of like something so fundamentally important. And also just doing a protest is not going to do anything. Protests are completely retarded. The two things that can get you what you want on the scale of society changing to your will are as follows: voting and making the government afraid of you to the point where maybe they'll listen, or otherwise replacing the government. Now, voting is no longer an option because whites have already dropped below 50% of the population, right? In a couple of years, because the largest white population proportionately is senior citizens, right? They're past the age of breeding and they've already got one foot in the grave. So whites have already been majority population replaced in the US. So we will never be able to vote ourselves out of the current situation. So I think you can understand where I'm going with all of this.
You're going to say that white Americans are total cocks, you know. Once upon a time I had one neo-Nazi friend, that kind of Nazis that don't post swastikas on the 4chan, but that kind of more, like pro-action guy who doesn't do much internet, but who does some shit on the street. So once upon a time he came to America. He was greeted by the various American right-wing radicals, and when he returned to Russia, he was astonished. He said, Igor, I don't understand it. These guys, they have everything. They can they can create a legal organization. They have automatic weapons, Igor, and this is illegal here. And they have a constitutional right to say everything they want, and they won't be persecuted by the state. Unlike us, Igor, they have guns. They have openings for propaganda. They have legal organization, Igor, and they sit and post fucking paper memes. Igor, I don't understand. How? If we've got 1/10 part of that is legal in America, we would made already a Russian national revolution, but they only made a Pepe the Frog. Igor, what the fuck? And this was about like 5 years ago, I think. So since then, the situation got much worse, and still, if we talked about Unite the Right rally, this was a few years ago, and cities are burning, and the only thing that American rights are talking, let's give Trump one more term, Trump will show them, or let's sit up and speak in cryptic language about, organizing from that thing that I won't say publicly. Guys, you're organizing your decades, you have decades of organizing, you organize, you buy guns, you create organization, secret organization, with numbers instead of names, and then you go in the rural country and you drink beer and shoot your guns and curse, and that's all. And then you return and you go straight back to your office work, afraid even to speak even small part of what do you really think, like Russians in the Soviet times, when the only thing you could do, you just tell anti-Soviet anecdotes, but not more than that. So you're really like in the Soviet Union already. Then incentive, no, just wait, when the breaking point will come, helter skelter, Rahova. There won't be any Rahova. If the fuckers burn down your town, if fuckers burn down your business, if fuckers attack your elderly, and all you do is saying, we will organize sometime, we have secret organization, just wait. Then you are losing. Because leftists are talking about power, about means to obtain power, and you are talking about, well, just wait for the biology to take its turn. Don't you think
That's
that...
not what I said again. You misquoted me again. I understand you're emotional, but at least try to be objective.
I'm just spent last couple of days talking to intellectual American rights, and I asked the same question, guys, what you gonna do? What we all should do?
No, they absolutely don't get me wrong. The right-wing pundits, or even say dissident right-wing, they're not really dissident, but it's what they label themselves as, dissident right-wing pundits. They have absolutely no plan whatsoever. And I'm the first one to even sort of be talking about this stuff and coming up with a strategy to implement. It is appalling that nothing has been done after all this time. But yeah, I can't really speak for anything that's been done in the past because I wasn't there. But like I say, I agree with you. I don't agree with the idea of publicly at work voicing your beliefs, because for one, I don't really see how that's productive. I don't think you're going to bring anyone onto your side by doing that, and it's going to limit your access to resources because you're going to get fired. And now you don't have a job, can't support a family, whatever. So, if the time for talking is over, I don't really understand why talking in the office of all places would be of a benefit. But like I say, there's definitely a lot to be done. And as for what the breaking point is, it's actually very simple. The breaking point is when you are no longer allowed to organize, right? So the idea is develop the largest possible organization you can, and eventually the government is going to try to put a stop to it. And that is the critical point. That is the point where you have gained all the power you can possibly gain, and you will not be allowed to gain any more peacefully. And that's the breaking point. But we haven't even begun to climb that yet. And part of the reason why we haven't even begun to climb that yet is because I am literally the first man to be even talking about this sort of stuff in the American dissident right-wing community, or whatever you want to call it. But there you go.
But you are not gaining power, you are losing power. You are losing culture power because culture is there. You are losing financial power because all big corporations, big money are on their side. You are losing government power because you already almost don't have any right-wing politicians, really right-wings. You are losing every meaningful kind of power that there is, and you are getting all Western societies a kind of spiral of silence. It's a concept from the Nazi time when everyone was just shutting up because not because of terror, no, because everyone thought around them, and so no one objects the things that Hitler does, and I don't talk about Holocaust. I am talking about for example, nationalization of big and big size business, for example, that was really a pain in the ass for some people. But they were thinking, well, no one objects, why should I? And while there were many who didn't like Hitler for the very practical issues, they didn't voice their concert because they looked around them and they saw only silence, and they thought, well, why should I be the first? So there is kind of dynamics that I see now in Western society when there is a spiral of silence, few voices that publicly object something, and when no one objects, there is an illusion of some kind of consent, while you can't be really consent with the fact that your towns are burned and everything, but well, no one objects, okay, good, fine, and then there is that's becoming a new normal. So maybe you need to start fighting for power, not only for culture. Maybe you must start to wage a culture war. You're waging it on your side, but you're one of the kind.
So what's the suggestion? Sorry.
Короче говоря, кроме тайных организаций, тайной активности, должна быть активность публичная.
When it comes to a culture war, I can't really think of anything that's not currently being done, given right-wing people's current position, that could be done. One thing that I think needs to be done is there needs to be a massive pushback against the idea of not ever doing anything outside of just posting something on the computer, because you could potentially be doxxed or lose your job or something like that, because there's a risk in just posting memes and shit anyway. So yeah, currently the biggest issue is that people refuse to do anything besides what can be done on the computer. And part of the solution to that is lowering the barrier for entry. And part of the solution is also through right-wing media, right-wing channels, getting rid of this idea that anyone that wants to organize in any capacity whatsoever they have to be like an FBI agent or something trying to get you to do the wrong thing. I think that idea is quite harmful, because you're right, at some point, and probably some point soon, there needs to be serious in-person action, right? Because the internet can only do so much.
Well, you can't do much in the internet now because of the platforming and canceling culture that started as a joke, or safe spaces, or snowflakes, but really this was another power grab. They grabbed power to represent some sets of values in the public spaces and denied this right to you. So you can't, I've noticed a funny thing. I had some problems with Russian security services because of some shit that I say on the internet. And when we've got to YouTube channel and so on, I didn't stop saying some shit on the internet, even after FSB searched my flat. I said, fuck you, my right to free speech is more important. I started to censor myself under YouTube and Facebook censure. I understood that they deny your right to say anything you want much more fiercely and with much more scrutiny than the government security services. They can ban you, they can deplatform you, and funny thing, you don't fear FSB, but you are starting to fear some fucking Zuckerberg guy. You are starting to fear some anonymous Indian guy from the abuse team, Facebook abuse team that was moved to India to cut the cost. That's funny thing. You don't fear the fucking FSB, the fucking successor to the Soviet KGB, but you're fearing Facebook abuse team. You've got much more fierce, much more serious censor in the so-called free Western world than you've got here. That's I speak from my experience, and that's and when you can even say a word. We will bleep this out because we don't want to get a ban, because that's Google guys, they are not FSB, they are much more serious fucking shit, yeah? So when you even can't say fucking when you start to censor yourself, that's fucking Soviet Union, and that's fucking Soviet Union, and you say, okay, let's organize, but not that much. How you can recruit someone when you can't talk freely? How can you grow your movement when you can communicate your views?
I actually already solved that part already. So
yeah, BitChute almost
no. So no, BitChute doesn't work. You have to use mainstream sites. So what I figured out, kind of accidentally, was a way to grow on mainstream sites like YouTube, Facebook, whatever you want, while at the same time getting banned every day, is to not promote your YouTube or whatever, because it's just going to get taken down. You promote your Telegram, or I don't think Telegram's going to last forever either, but after Telegram, we'll have some sort of Onion forum set up. But you promote that, and then on that, you have a link to whatever social media you're currently using. So the way I do my streams is I'll post a link to my stream on my Telegram, and then when the stream inevitably gets banned midway through, I just log into another account and start streaming on that one, and then that one gets banned, but it's okay because people keep just referring back to that central place of organization, and we can just continue to grow on YouTube and Facebook or whatever while getting banned sometimes multiple times a day. And I'm the first one to have figured that out and do it, and it clearly works, right? So like, in a small space of time, like I've only been an internet personality at all for just over a year now, and my Telegram almost has 50,000 members, and like my live streams hit like 6,000 concurrent, which is incredibly good for any sort of streamer within their first year of streaming, let alone someone that has only been doing it for a year. That's almost unheard of. So obviously part of that is you actually need to be entertaining enough or be providing something that people are actually willing to watch. But the point is that being able to do all of that despite being banned countless times just shows that we've found a way to circumvent censorship at this point.
Yeah.
Every time my accounts get banned, I just get a new one that ends up having more followers.
Yeah, but leftists are using social mechanics of YouTube, Facebook, and so on for their advantages to spread their views, and you are fighting against it. So they have a clear advantage, and so they can communicate their messages to a much more wide audience than you are, and so it's a losing race. You and all right-wingers will lose it because you are fighting against this social media, while leftists are using social media for their advantages.
Okay, no, because for one, we don't actually need the majority of the population to agree with us. We only need about 10%. That's generally the point of critical mass to where a revolution takes place historically. And the other thing is that if you are on the side of truth, once someone accepts what you have to say, they're not going to go back to the other side. So when we gain someone, we gain them forever, right? Whereas the left has to try and claw and maintain what they do have. So yeah, as long as we manage to gather that small minority, then we're fine. It doesn't matter if it's a losing battle in the short term.
Yeah, but you are still in a losing position because leftists don't talk about truth or facts or all these boring matters. They talk about power, and they don't propose to tell you final truth or something. They propose you power to decide who will be cancelled, power to decide who will keep their job and who don't. Power to decide who will run for office and who don't. Power to decide which house will stand and which house will be burned down. And you are just against this intoxicating drug, proposing just trust. Don't you think that this is a very boring proposition? Because power is power. Power is everything.
Sorry, what did you say? What did you say my position was?
That you are proposing to give trust, and they are proposing to give power, and power will trump the trust.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just answering your question because you were saying, like, how can we win from a losing position is basically what a lot of these questions come back to, right? How can we win from a losing position? And it's that there is, if you have a dedicated enough group, then you are disproportionately powerful for your size, which is what I said.
Well, you know, it's kind of sad because you are talking, you're telling me most of the talking points of the Russian national movement for the past decade, that, you know, we have that Rus, we will win, we will be disproportionately powerful, and so on and so on. And for the past decade, Russian national movement was almost eradicated. It didn't evolve in anything. It was destroyed by external forces. And so when I see almost exactly same words from you, it's starting, you know, to sound very depressing, because been there, done that. I have written many articles with almost exact same talking points, and this didn't lead to anything. Maybe I don't know, maybe I'm just cynical, but all I see is you are hoping for the best and nothing else.
So what would you suggest then? What do you think is the ideal strategy given the current position of whites in the US?
I don't know what's the ideal strategy, but I think that you must hijack the discourse. You must also start to talk about power. You must also start to talk about power redistribution. You must also start to talk, and you must also start try to grab power and to fight for power. Because that's power can be stopped only with overwhelming power. Power cannot be stopped by trust. You know, there are too many depressing number of Russians who were shot by communists and who were screaming in the last moments that trust will prevail. We have trust on our side, and then squad fire, and that was that. in Russia, too many times we're hoping that trust will prevail, only to find ourselves dead.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'd say, yeah, I'd agree. Primarily focusing on power is far more convincing for people. So instead of I sort of had a lower resolution version of that. I've been saying recently, or actually I've been saying for a while, that we shouldn't try to focus on having better facts or proving that something is wrong objectively, showing that something our enemies are saying is not true. We should focus on doing whatever is more emotionally provocative. If you can make people feel more than your enemies can, then you will have a far greater influence over people, because people act based on their emotions, not based on what they think is true or false. Things being true or false isn't really that important. So the most emotionally evocative thing would be power, right? Because we've evolved for that. It's like the whole reason that we're concerned about, say, status, for example, is because status is a form of power, and if you don't have enough status in the tribe, your genes die off. Or if you're not capable of more violence than your enemies are, and your enemies, well, their enemies, so they're hostile, then you would also die off. So yeah, power would be the most emotionally evocative thing to talk about, and the reason why it would be the most emotionally moving thing to talk about would be because our emotions have sort of evolved to respond to any sort of call to power. Yeah, so focusing rhetoric around power would be a good idea.
I will say even more. What do you do personally? They say we leftists have the power over you can say and can't say. You can't say you can't you can't make a blackface and so on. And here you attack this power with all your blackface performance. You stand up and say, "No, you don't have power over me. You can decide what I can and what I can do. I attack your discourse. I attack your power with my power of comedy, of love. But it's a direct attack on the power, on the control over the public discourse. And that's why you are so popular, and that's why people come to see your streams and so on, because they see you as a center of power, not as someone who is defiant, as someone who is against who's against dominant power, who's against overwhelming power. They come to see you, they come to talk to you, because you are a wielder of power, because you are the power center. And instead of nurturing your power, instead of growing up your power, instead of creating institutions, maybe, I don't know, first University of Comedy or something, you just say, that's some shit, no, let's wait for the breaking point. While you personally, you challenge power, and people like when someone's challenging power, especially when this guy is an underdog. People like stories about Jedi rebels fighting against Sith hordes, and when you're Jedi, they're coming to you, they're coming to support you. Dude, all you Western American culture is centered around Star Wars, and you are doing a very Jedi thing, but you think that's nothing. We just must wait for the next. I hope you understood.
Yeah, so a way to put it in a sentence would be when your enemy says there will be consequences for your actions, then you do those very things that they don't like, and there is no consequence. You were showing them to be powerless, and that gives you power over them. So the example with me would be, they say, you can't be racist. Blackface is pretty much the most racist thing someone could do on the internet. And so you'll definitely get banned and you won't be able to grow. You won't be able to grow a following or whatever because you're going to keep getting banned. And then I do it and their bans mean nothing and I do grow a following that shows that they have no power over internet discourse, or they have no power over people's speech on the internet, at least when it comes to me.
Yes, they are saying, respect my authority. That's the limits that I will set up for you. And you answer no. Fuck you, dude. Fuck you, fucking Cartman. I don't respect your authority. I don't respect limits that you set for my right to free speech. You say this is better. I say fuck you. And in this era of silent compliance from everyone else, that looks like a full-blown rebellion, and that attracts people. And the more rebellion will grow, the more people will come to its lights. You understand how it's revolting, how this is revolting in the era when even to say, maybe burning down towns is not that good, okay? When they see that, you attack their discourse, you attack their claim to power, and you all should do this more. There should be hundreds of CatboyKami. Not only one who speaks like Christ, who is ready to be crucified for his sins of blackfacing, You're seriously, in all your interview, you're talking like fucking kamikaze, who who is preparing for his last rites. This is insanity. And if you can, I don't know, attack or kill one CatboyKami, that's much more difficult to attack and kill 100 CatboyKamis, and even more difficult 1,000 or 10,000. I hope you understood what I'm trying to say in my broken Ronglish.
No, it makes a lot of sense. So what you're saying is, to make sure I do understand, what you're saying is there should be an active call for copycats, let's say, because it's a far greater attack to their power to have thousands of people doing what I've done than just me doing it alone. Because eventually they would be shown to, it's not just like one isolated example. They would be shown to be so powerless against so many people that eventually no one's going to care about the power that they supposedly had. And that would be a victory over
funny thing,
their hold of the social media.
Yes, and the funny thing, you can use even Black History to promote that. Rosa Parks, who rejected to vacant place for whites only. You are that Rosa Parks right now. You said, no, I don't go in the back of the bus where whites only places. No, I will say that I am a trans. Sorry, so you're kind of Rosa Parks, and you can, by the way, explain yourself in that discourse. You're leader of the intellectual trans movement. I think you heard about this Jewish professor who... Короче, можно я обратно на русский перейду. Про эту еврейку, которая призналась, то, что она, значит, все эти годы выдавала себя за черную, и вот на днях покаялась по интернету.
I saw that one. Right, so...
Ты уже лидер интеллектуального движения, понимаешь? Целые университетские профессора присоединяются.
I agree. I had plans for further action outside of media. And my idea for growing a media following was primarily to promote that. But you've given me this new idea of a way that I could also push the envelope to the media and move it to a new level by encouraging other people to sort of do what I've been doing to undermine the power of our enemies.
Ну, я, в общем, думал, что у нас будет такой достаточно тролльский разговор, а у нас вышла практически стратегическая сессия, значит, подземного мирового белого правительства масонского. Стратегию и тактику.
Yeah, no, it's a productive conversation for sure. I've definitely learned some things.
Но я должен сказать, что все-таки как бы не будем делать совсем все серьезно. Конечно же, самая большая атака твоя на власть была, когда ты ходил в женском наряде и рядом, значит, с полицейским включал на своем телефоне клип про офицера. Если вы меня отпустите, я вам отсосу. I did my homework.
Yeah, that's a good video.
But at the same time, you are very homophobic, so you were gonna to blow this officer like is a good, manly getaway. Am I understanding correctly? Not that faggot way, but traditional, good.
Yeah, of course. It wasn't actually me that suggested I blow the officer. It was people sending voice messages over my phone with the text-to-speech. So I can't take all the credit.
Yeah, so I think we should end our conversation here, because I see that you are kind of tired. I'm tired too, as you can say. Starting to go back in Russian language. So thank you for your interview. If you want, we can chat sometime in the future.
Yeah, anytime, bro.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you around.
Царь.чат создано на деньги добрых русских людей. Отдельное спасибо RR1721, Альфа и Омега, Джордж Т. Благодарим царей Григорий И, Антон С, Алекс БС. Благодарим великого князя Михаил Н. Благодарим князей Разрушитель Кисок, единственный русский в Чикаго. Благодарим графов Кус-Кус, Вол, Махагала, Зампред, Постол 8, НК, Зоофоб 33, Неоязычник, Пьер да Челло и всех бояр-подписчиков. Царь.чат. Подписывайтесь.